Good evening. Buenas tardes. I am Juan Carlos Molleda, Edwin L. Arts Dean and Professor, and it is my pleasure to welcome you all to the U of O School of Journalism and Communications 24th Annual Hall of Achievement Gala. The past 2 years have been strange for all of us, unlike anything we have seen in our lifetime. Before the pandemic, few would have believed our modern lives could be so profoundly disrupted, our community so deeply divided, our future so unclear. I had been looking forward to celebrating this event because it reminds us that no matter what might happen tomorrow, the work we do today matters. We all sharing this global moment together, yet we each experience it uniquely. As communicators, our gift is our ability to add our voices to the tapestry of human experience, to weave this moment into something meaningful, and to help tell the story of our time. Until we are able to gather again in person, and I hope this is going to happen next year, we are honored to virtually bring together both the illustrious past and the exceptional future of our school and our profession. Founded 24 years ago by our Journalism Advancement Council, the SOJC Hall of Achievement honors many of our most distinguished alumni and faculty. It also connects our best and brightest students with our incredible network of SOJC graduates who now work as top professionals in their fields. Today, the SOJC Hall of Achievement counts 89 alumni and faculty in its membership. And tonight, we have the honor of inducting three new members to our Hall of Achievement. Ken Doctor, Michelle Matassa Flores, and Francis Casoma. And of recognizing two winners of this year's Eric Allen Outstanding Young Alumni Award, Ryan Knudson and Jake Swanko. To kick off the evening, I would like to welcome our new Associate Dean for Undergraduate Affairs, Deb Morrison, who will introduce a special guest, Hall of Achievement Scholarship recipient Eduardo Olivares.
Thank you, Juan Carlos, for those good words. It's my honor to introduce Eduardo Olivares, an SOJC student, a Hall of Achievement Scholarship recipient, and our student speaker tonight. He has a remarkable story to tell. Eduardo is a business owner, an entrepreneur with a thriving vintage clothing store here in Eugene, and who still manages to keep a high GPA and be a leader in our program. He's a first-generation college student who, inspired by his hardworking parents, became the youngest person to be certified as an insurance agent at Farmers Insurance at the age of 18. He's an advertising student with a sports business minor and a dream of taking his business into the influencer and event realm, a collaboration of sports and music and culture. He'll do this. More, Eduardo represents so much of what is amazing about our first generation students from diverse backgrounds. The accent he grew up with tells us of his courage. His focus on becoming reminds us of his resilience. His very act of being here is a story of leadership. Eduardo Olivares is good for the world. I'm proud he is our student and speaker tonight.
Hello everyone, mi nombre es Eduardo Olivares. Even though we couldn't celebrate in person, it is my pleasure to speak to you today and to have been selected as this year's Hall of Achievement student speaker. I am very grateful to have received the Hall of Achievement scholarship. This funding has allowed me to continue chasing my dreams. I am now one step closer to graduating and becoming the first person in my family with a college degree. I am proud to stand before you as a dreamer. DREAMER stands for Development, Relief, and Education for Alien Minors. When I was 5 years old, my parents decided to immigrate to the United States in search of a better future. My parents sacrificed everything they had to give us a better life. The term dreamer represents individuals like me who were born in a different country but have lived in the United States for most of their lives. For all of us, the United States is the only place we know as home. Every 2 years, we have to go through a long, expensive process of renewing our permit, which allows us to stay here. Currently, there is no path to citizenship for us 800,000 dreamers, and our permits could be taken away at any moment. We can only plan out our future 2 years at a time. But even with everything against us, we will continue to rise and demonstrate that we belong here. Living in Eugene almost my whole life, I have learned to value my community. Bringing a new community to the University of Oregon was our biggest goal when my business partner Harrison Stevens and I created the NEST. NEST stands for Neighborhood Eugene Sustainability Team. It is the first curated vintage clothing store in Eugene, and it is an outlet for self-expression and creativity. Through the NEST, we have been able to build community through vintage clothing. Since our grand opening in January of this year, we have been overwhelmed with the support from our local community. None of this would have been possible without the support from family, friends, and everyone else here at the University of Oregon. Becoming an SOJC student was one of the best decisions I made during my time here. It is a place that has fueled my creativity and allowed me to grow. As I look back and reflect on my time here as a student, I am reminded of how fast life happens. While I am far from where I want to be, I hope I serve as motivation for other young dreamers. Anything is possible. Si se puede. Thank you for your time.
Muchas gracias, Eduardo. Estoy muy orgulloso de ti. Thank you, Eduardo. You are an inspiration to your fellow students, as well as to our faculty, staff, and alumni. We look forward to seeing what you will accomplish here at the SOJC and after that, out in the world. Since 2001, the Hall of Achievement Scholarship Fund has helped many of our students work through tremendous difficulties and achieve success in their fields. Thank you to the continued support of our donors. This fund awarded over 16,000 in scholarships to SOJC students this year. But we still have many more exceptional students who face mounting challenges ahead. You can give them a hand by contributing to our Hall of Achievement Scholarship Fund. If you would like to donate, please visit the URL that is on your screen. Your generous gift will empower more students to make an impact on the world. Speaking of making an impact, it's time to honor the 2021 Eric Allen Outstanding Young Alumni Award winners. In 2009, our school developed this award to commemorate our alumni under the age of 40 who have demonstrated early success and innovation in their professions. These individuals have built a portfolio of outstanding work and hold the promise of continued distinction and leadership in the future. This year, you are honoring not one, but two winners. To introduce the first of this year's Eric Allen Outstanding Young Alumni, I would like to welcome Associate Professor of Journalism, Jesse Abdenor.
Yeah, thank you very much, Juan Carlos. I'm excited to introduce Jake. I mean, his film won an Oscar. I mean, let's start there. We're talking about the Hall of Achievement. That's about as big an achievement as it gets. Not only did it win an Oscar, this is a film called Icarus, but the Sundance Film Festival basically invented an award for this film, and it was called the Orwell Award. And the Orwell Award was for revealing the truth when the truth was no longer a commodity. So pretty big deal for Jake and his producers, obviously. But if we go back to the beginning, there's one story that he told to one of my classes, and Jake comes to speak to my classes a lot. One story stood out, though. He was a fresh, precocious graduate of the SOJC a few years ago, and he found out that Nat Geo, National Geographic, was filming a documentary in Astoria, which is a couple hours from here. And he went there sight unseen, offered to work for free, just worked his tail off. And they ended up hiring him, and he got his foot in the door, and then he was off to the races. And I always appreciated that story because that's not an easy thing to do. Just go somewhere and just, want it so badly, but he was able to achieve that. I think that's a good lesson, that he can bring to my students. And he's always so enthusiastic when he talks to my documentary or my video production classes. And some of that love and enthusiasm and passion for the craft was instilled by some of his mentors here, including Leslie Steves and Rebecca Force, who helped kind of give him his start and helped him get out there in the world. But his initiative and work ethic is a theme when you hear from people that have worked with him. They really appreciate that. And speaking of which, why don't we watch a video where a lot of the people that he have expressed their appreciation for what Jake does, and it really shines through. So why don't we play that video?
I think Jake is quite exceptional because of the way he really cares about his work. I think that he brings to this world of documentary, he brings a sort of sense of honesty to the picture.
The two films that we've made together, Icarus and The Dissident, both of those films would not have been possible without Jake. His work is really extraordinary. He's a fantastic creative.
I worked with him on The Dissident, and look, if it wasn't for Jake, that film would not exist. Jake was, the key man on that film. Virtually everything you see on screen was captured by Jake.
He lets the world happen in front of the lens, right? And he doesn't intrude. And there's something about the way his mind works in terms of story. And when we talk about what to shoot next or where to go or how to get things done, there's an optimism to it. And I think that you have to have that in order to be in this business. It's so hard to make these films. And there are many times when you think it's never going to get done, or it's a lot easier maybe to turn away and do something else.
This is someone who has devoted his life to uncovering the truth, to telling the truth, to making sure stories are told. Stories about justice, stories about human rights, stories that deeply move people to the core and bring new knowledge and information.
Icarus made a pretty big impact. I think it brought documentary film back into, kind of built that wave of the new documentary that's becoming popular now.
He was involved literally from day one. The very first day of shooting, Jake was there for Icarus through the entire journey of making that film all over the world. Jake will take risks, and he has always been a risk taker.
I can speak freely about, putting yourself in danger because I'm not the one out there. Jake has done it a couple times to be out in strange locations with a lot happening around you, chasing a story that maybe some people don't want out. And I think it takes a certain kind of individual, not just to do it or to want to do it, but to actually do it really, really well. And that's what Jake's been able to do.
He is a cameraman that works in conflict, and that really adds a lot to his ability to come up with nicely framed shots in the heat of battle.
I think of Jake as my partner, my creative partner, and also one of my best friends. I can't imagine a day that I'd make a film without Jake.
This is someone who has a true moral imagination, and I am privileged to call him a friend, a colleague, and a lifelong warrior for justice and human rights.
And it is pretty impressive just to see the impact that he's had on people, and the impact that some of these films have really had, according to a lot of people. And before I introduce Jake, I just want to go back to that thing I talked about at the beginning, where there's an Orwell Award that Icarus won for revealing the truth when the truth is no longer a commodity. And I'll be honest, I kind of had to look up the word commodity to really understand what they meant. I know it's part of the Chicago mercantile market, but when you look up the definition of commodity, it's something of value. And so if the truth is no longer valued, so that's what they're saying, then it's even more important for people like Jake to reveal the truth when people don't want to hear it. And as they say, kind of grab it from dark places and reveal it to the world. So it's my pleasure to introduce the winner of the Eric Allen Award for Outstanding Young Alumni. Congrats, Jake. Here he is, Jake Swanko. We hope. There he is. Oh, no, not Jake.
Well, thank you, Jesse, and congratulations, Jake. Your work has inspired many, and we look forward to seeing the impact you will continue to make in your field. And I want also to take advantage to thank you because you are always present in the SOJC, sharing your experience and your expertise with the students and faculty. Next, I'd like to welcome Pulitzer Prize winner, past Hall of Achievement inductee, and SOJC Assistant Professor of Journalism, Brent Wolf, who will introduce our second winner of the Eric Allen Outstanding Young Alumni Award.
Thanks, Juan Carlos. It's a thrill to be here. It's always an honor to take part in this event. I've been attending these Hall of Achievement events now for many years, and I've been lucky enough to take part in a few. And I can actually recall when I first learned that the University of Oregon School of Journalism and Communication had established these Eric Allen Outstanding Young Alumni Award. And when I learned it, I had two immediate thoughts. One, first, what a great idea. And second, they're going to give this award to Ryan Knudsen. There's no question about it. It's just a matter of time. Not that my predictive abilities was all that, but Ryan had been only for a couple of years. But his promise as a young journalist was already growing. We knew it.
Oh, so they just couldn't get me on or something. I don't know what happened.
We knew it, Ryan, when you graduated that you were going big places, and we really, it really turned out to be the case. I met Ryan for the first time in April of 2007, when SOJC asked me to teach the reporting 2 class.
Okay.
I was still
in
my first time teaching at my alma mater, University of Oregon. And I remember how important this class was to me, reporting 2. I still used a lot of the lessons every day, and I still had
was it on
as I went through my everyday work, all the lessons that I got from that class. And I lucked out. I lucked out because I ended up with 16 terrific, outstanding, motivated students, including Ryan. In fact, Ryan was the star of that class. He was a sophomore, and he was already editor of the Oregon Daily Emerald, already demonstrating his leadership skills, desire to learn new skills, and to challenge himself with every story, to make sure every story he wrote had the opportunity to make a difference. That next year, I taught an investigative reporting course, also as an adjunct, and Ryan signed up for that class too. And this was a moment where, Ryan, your extraordinary ability was really spoke to me. I told everybody in that class, 10 weeks. You have 10 weeks to write an investigative story. And Ryan did it in half that time. He wrote a story about the lack of training that police officers get to deal with people in mental health crises. Now, that was 13 years ago. And my students today are writing stories about that same topic. Now, that just goes to show you how far out in front Ryan was as a journalist even then. His journey has taken him from the Emerald to the Oregonian, to ProPublica, to PBS Frontline, the Wall Street Journal, and now as Senior Vice President for Media Partnerships at Dow Jones, where he co-hosts the Journal podcast. Ryan provides an enduring example for our current and future students who believe journalism should hold true to its commitment to public service and social responsibility. And I've learned a lot by watching his career, and I try to instill those lessons in the teaching I do today. One big message is this: it's no longer enough for the news media to tell our audiences, hey, look, this story is important and you've got to pay attention to us. No, today we need to seek more effective ways toward engagement. And here's Ryan, someone who has succeeded across all forms of media and all storytelling platforms. Today, we in the news media need to gain expertise. Reporters need to really know deeply the issues they're writing about so we can stand out in what is very noisy media world, I should say. And that's what he's done. That's been a defining feature of Ryan's career. Expertise that has made him prominent and listened to. It also requires a devotion to context and depth and precision, which Ryan's work has always represented. And it requires a clear, strong voice. And Ryan's voice has always been one of clarity and fairness as he tells stories in the pursuit of insight and impact and truth. Ryan, we all know this award was going to catch up with you someday. You've been long deserving of it. And it arrives at the perfect moment because of the example you set for our students at this critical time for our business. Now we're about to watch a video about Ryan. We learn some more, but I just want to say before this rolls how proud I am to have worked with you, to have had you as a student, and to be part of this moment. Now, here's the video.
He's a diverse journalist. Like, he has a lot of tools in his toolbox. You know, he went from audio to print journalism to, he got a degree in documentary filmmaking, and then he went to ProPublica and did investigative work, and then went to Frontline, and then went to the Wall Street Journal, and then went to the business side of the Wall Street Journal, like fighting for our journalism and the economics of it, and then went back to podcasts. So it's been really fun to just watch his career bloom. It's incredibly impressive.
When he got the job co-hosting the Journal, this was such a big moment. It was something that he had really wanted, and I think those around Ryan had always known he has this star quality persona to him, and so him getting that call to host and really help launch this now globally revered podcast and show is just, is really amazing to know that the world now gets to listen to Ryan report these stories.
What made him really special was his curiosity, and he always wanted to know how things worked. Why are we doing this, and how does it work, and how should it work? And I think that, by the way, is the characteristic that usually makes for great journalists as well. And I wish that there were 100 other Ryans that were out there.
He just wants to get to the bottom of things. He wants to learn about the world. He loves history. He loves looking at a problem and then finding the answer and bringing that to our listeners, or in the past, our readers. And he loves the counterintuitive example and the weird and wacky things that are happening out there in the world.
He's a person who's really, really good, but also humble and still learning and willing and happy to listen and engage with people. And I think that makes a huge difference. So he's so honest and earnest and well-prepared, and respectful and genuinely interested that I think sources just feel they have to tell him things.
Is right in the trenches, reporting fairly and honestly and showing both sides. He doesn't have a shtick. He's not self-promoting himself. He's promoting the issue which we need to be informed about. And I think Ryan's a civically oriented, in a small d, democratic person, that he knows the value of the free press is fundamental to our democracy, and he's playing his part in that.
What a terrific video. And it's my pleasure now to bring in Ryan Knudsen. Ryan.
Wow, thank you so much. That is an incredible video. Brent, I have a lot to say about you in my speech, which I'll get to in a minute, but thank you so much for the kind words. I really appreciate that.
You're very welcome. The stage is all yours.
Well, thank you first to everybody in the video, Jack Jensen, Edward Roussel, Ken Yarnell, Andrew Dow, Kate Linebaugh, and my wife, Molly Bedford. All of you have been such important mentors and friends to me throughout many different stages of my life. There's no way I would be where I am if it weren't for all of you. I also want to thank Juan Carlos and the rest of the selection committee for this incredible honor. I remember going to these Hall of Achievement dinners as a student at U of O and being in awe of the success of these alums and being grateful of having the chance to meet them. So it's very surreal now to be among the group of people who are being honored. Going to the University of Oregon was one of the best and easiest decisions I ever made. I knew I wanted to be a journalist ever since I took a journalism elective class in middle school. And in high school, I went to an event with my dad where different colleges in the Pac-10 at that time gave presentations about their schools. And I grew up a Duck fan. So the first session that we went to was for U of O. And I'll never forget when the representative said that the University of Oregon has one of the best journalism programs west of the Mississippi. And I remember turning to my dad and saying, well, I guess that settles that. And for the record, the U of O doesn't have one of the best journalism schools west of the Mississippi. It has the best. And I think that I could also make a case that it has the best program in the country, but I might be a little biased. But one of the things that makes the University of Oregon so strong is its independent daily student newspaper, the Oregon Daily Emerald, to which I owe a great deal of my success. It's a place where I was able to develop and hone my skills as a young journalist. When I got to U of O, my number one objective was to eventually become editor-in-chief, and I did. And as you may have heard at this point, I was the youngest ever Emerald editor-in-chief at just a sophomore. But the less well-known part of that story is how I got the job. I was still a freshman, and I'd been working at the paper full-time as a reporter, covering higher education for about 2 months, when applications were due for next year's editor-in-chief job. I asked around, and I learned that no one had applied. And not only that, but no one planned to apply because all the paper's leadership was graduating. I definitely wasn't ready to be editor-in-chief. I was young and inexperienced and naive, but I also saw an opportunity. If this was my number one goal, I couldn't just let it pass me by. Plus, I also felt a sense of duty to the paper because somebody had to do it. So I applied and I was given the job, and it forced me to grow up pretty fast. Fortunately, I had incredible support. First, from my managing editor, Molly Bedford, who later became my wife, and who always encouraged me to take risks. I'll never forget a few months into the job, she started talking about how the deadline was approaching to apply for the New York Times internship, and we needed to get our applications ready. And at that point, applying to something like the New York Times hadn't even crossed my mind. It was Molly who got me dreaming bigger. I also got amazing support from the faculty at U of O, like Al Stavitsky, Leslie Steeves, John Palferman, John Rushell, Mark Blaine, Tim Gleason. Brent Wolf, you were an adjunct at the time, but you were one of my most important mentors and writing coaches. You mentioned how you were excited to teach at U of O and how big of a deal it was for you, but it was also a very big deal for me. I was so excited when I saw that Brent Wolf, a Pulitzer Prize-winning investigative reporter, was going to teach a class at U of O. It was about investigative reporting. It was exactly what I wanted to do with my career. And if you ask my colleagues, they'll tell you that I'll still talk about the ladder of abstraction, which is a concept that you taught me in one of your classes. Scott Mayer, he brought such a passion and excitement to the art of reporting. One of my favorite classes was one that he taught called Powered Journalism, where he talked about how to use the internet to find phone numbers and public records. And I would take what I learned in his class and immediately put it to use at the Oregon Daily Emerald. And it's still a set of skills I rely on to this day. There's two other important mentors that I met through U of O who I'd like to thank. The first is Steve Smith, who was always there for Emerald editors and who taught me how to have confidence in my decisions. Also, Abram Lustgarten. Abram was only an adjunct for about 2 quarters, but he not only gave me advice on how to navigate a career in journalism, but after I graduated and started as an intern at ProPublica, where he worked, he invited me into his reporting project. It was about BP and the spill in the Gulf of Mexico. And it was a reporting project that led to my first job at PBS Frontline. And if it wasn't for that and his generosity, my career would have likely taken an entirely different path. And I also have to thank Jim Pinciero, a U of O and WSJ alum who I met at a U of O event my senior year. He helped me get a foot in the door at the Wall Street Journal, and I have called on him for advice during just about every career move I've ever made, and he's never led me astray. And finally, I want to thank my amazing parents, Darwin and Judy, for always encouraging me to follow my dreams, even if it led me all the way across the country, and to my sister Amy for always having my back. Thank you all so much. And go Ducks.
Thank you, Brent, and congratulations, Ryan. You are an incredible role model for our students, and we are excited to watch your career continue to unfold at the highest levels. This is a live event, so Jake Swanko couldn't accept his award because he has some technical difficulties. But Jake is back, and I would like to introduce our first Eric Allen Alumni Yon Alumni Award, Jake Swanko.
Thank you so much. Where to begin? I'd like to thank the University of Oregon, the School of Journalism, and all of the colleagues and coworkers that spoke on behalf of my character. To say that I'm humbled and extremely honored would be an understatement. To my parents who saw promise in a horribly dyslexic son who didn't learn how to read or write until he was 12 years old. Back then, a journalism award didn't seem like a very likely prospect. But everybody loves an underdog story, and that story would have not been possible without my parents. So I love you, Mom and Dad. My studies at the SOJC and the trajectory of my career working in sound, voice, written, and visual, moving image as a cinematographer, so much of what the School of Journalism set me up with in that first generation of multimedia, or what they called Gateway at the time, it was a toolkit to create documentary films in retrospect, tools I use to this day. But above all the tools, the greatest asset that the SOJC gave me is the moral and ethical integrity as a journalist and a storyteller. As I'm sure it is the case with many students, Rebecca Force was the first person to put a camera in my hand. Although at the time interviewing Frog in front of Rennie's did not seem like much of a revelation, but looking back, having that camera in my hand was a moment that changed my life. And I'll always remember Rebecca's poised wisdom, her humor, and above all, her encouragement. I had the pleasure of working with Michael Werner at Flux Magazine for 2 years before I graduated. Michael really worked with me more as a colleague than as a student, and he gave me a toolkit, and he gave me hope that actually working in this field of journalism and documentary was a reality. I traveled to West Africa shortly after graduation for the Ghana internship with Leslie Steves, and I stayed there for 3 months and then traveled for a month by myself. My travels there have colored every ounce of my character, and I think about who I was then and what Ghana meant to me during that time, and it's sculpted much of what I've come to value in my life. So I owe much of that to Leslie. All these experiences created the space for who I am now, sort of like a roadmap in the ventures I would later take in journalism and documentary. They shaped my vision of who I wanted to become. And I guess what I'm really trying to say is inspiration, these strikes of inspiration that happened at the SOJC. And one of the first strikes of inspiration that I really changed a lot of things for me is in my first Gateway class taught by Mark Blaine. I went to his office after hours, and I just wanted to talk journalism with him. I wanted to figure out what inspired him, what moved him, and why he became a journalist. And he grabbed a book from his shelf and he pushed it across the table and he told me to read it. And that book was Fame and Obscurity by Gay Talese. It was one of those books that appeared in my life and became sort of like coordinates. It was a North Star for me. And I remember one line in particular where Talese wrote about journalists. And that line was, "They are obsessed, so many of them, by the wish to know how the other half lives. And so they befriend the more interesting of the odd, avoid the downtown dullards on Wall Street, and dip into the world of the junkie, the pederast, and the prize fighter." I guess I can say my interest in this work has been and always will be with people. Those living on the fringe, people in impossible circumstances, the impossibility of love, the kinetic and vibrant energy of people in moments where their lives seem to intersect beyond any logical or relevant reason. The rebel, the heroin addict, the crazy Russian scientist, the dissident, the widower, the fiance of a murdered journalist. Every story I've told has told me a story about myself. And in my life, their stories have helped to shape my story. I think we all seek at some level to be understood. And in the end, I feel that all we have is our story. I suppose with that in mind, my work has been a continued meditation on the empathy in many different circumstances and cultures with different people. I've cherished my creative collaborations with Brian Fogel, the director, Adam Peters, the composer, and Mark Monroe, our writer. I feel I've grown with them as filmmakers and most importantly as a human being. And lastly, it's been my honor truly to speak with students at the School of Journalism since the success of Icarus. As I'm not too far removed from those classrooms and I get to stand up there and talk with them, I can sometimes see myself out there. And if I could give any student advice, I would tell them to write your own story because no one knows it better than you. With much respect and love, go Ducks.
Thank you, Jake, and congratulations again. We are really proud of you, and I can't wait to see what you do next.
Thank you so
Now
much.
it's time to honor our 2021 Hall of Achievement inductees. It is my pleasure to welcome Tim Gleason, journalism professor, former dean of the SOJC, and outgoing director of the Hall of Achievement program, to introduce our first Hall of Achievement inductee of the evening, Michelle Flores.
Good evening. I'm so pleased to be part of this evening's Hall of Achievement celebration. Michelle Matassa Flores is the executive editor of the Seattle Times, a member of the SOJC's Journalism Advancement Council, and according to Seattle Magazine, one of Seattle's 25 most influential people. Seattle Magazine honored her for being, quote, a very public and fierce advocate in defending press freedoms. She joined a select group of Seattleites that included an impressive selection of political and business figures, and most impressive to me, at least, Seattle's sports power couple Sue Bird and Megan Rapinoe. Michelle started her career at the SOJC in the early 1980s and immediately found her way to the Oregon Daily Emerald with the help of her brother Mark, who was a senior when she was a freshman. In the 1984-85 academic year, she served as the ODE's editor-in-chief. In the recently published ODE 50th Anniversary of Independence book, Michelle tells the story of taking self-defense classes on a campus that was confronting a series of unsolved rapes. She wrote, while the classes didn't end my nightmares, the lessons made me, and I hope my Emerald readers, better prepared as we walk through campus, often at night. Her commitment to public service journalism has shaped her career from the ODE newsroom through today. After graduation, she moved to a reporting position at the Salem Statesman Journal and from there to the Seattle Times in 1988. She wandered briefly to the Puget Sound Business Journal and Crosscut.com in the early 2010s, where she held high-level editing positions, but for the most part, her career has been at the Times. In those roughly 30 years, Michelle has been a lot of different things. A reporter covering education, city government, and statewide politics, co-Metro editor, deputy investigations editor, features editor, and deputy business editor. Assistant managing editor from 2013 through 2015, deputy managing editor from 2015 through 2016, managing editor from 2016 through 2019, and executive editor from 2019 to the present. During her 10 years executive editor, the Seattle Times was awarded the 2020 Pulitzer Prize for National Reporting and many other awards, too many to count. It is safe to say that most observers would place the Times in the top tier of major regional newspapers, and it has a newsroom that is second to none in its commitment to public service journalism. For the better part of 30 years, Michelle has played a pivotal role in building that reputation and newsroom culture. When Michelle moved into the ODE editor-in-chief position back in 1984, she was part of what she called, quote, a movement, as women were beginning to, quote, take over the editor's office more often. Well, today, Michelle joins Therese Bottomley, class of '83, the editor and vice president of content at The Oregonian, and an inductee of the SOJC Hall of Achievement. Clearly, it is a movement, and clearly the SOJC and our alums are helping to lead it. Michelle, congratulations on your induction into the Hall of Achievement, and now on to the video.
Mitch is a really diehard advocate for the notion of journalism as the watchdog of the powerful, whether that power is held by a government agency, a business, or an individual. These stories are really hard to report. They're very painstaking to edit, and sometimes they even have to be defended in court at considerable cost of time and money. So it takes somebody like Mitch, who is a really dogged, tireless hunter of the truth, to see these stories through to the end.
As a lot of the best reporters and best editors are really iconoclastic, anti-authoritarian types who march to their own drummer. And Michelle certainly marches to her drummer, but she's savvy enough to understand how organizations work, how to thrive within organizations, how to change them, and how to inspire the people around her.
She is a really outstanding journalist and has a way of just very calmly getting people on board, getting things done, moving us forward. You know, this last 2 years have been more complex, more demanding, more multiple, things going on. And yet she's, she calmly weathers the waters and brings the staff along with her.
Michelle is a go-getter. She doesn't take no for an answer. She started at the Times, gosh, I don't know, maybe 30 years ago, and she started as a reporter, and she's worked her way up to executive editor. She is a role model, not only to our kids, but to her entire staff. Michelle won't ask any of her staff to do anything she wouldn't do. She's just a great role model.
Herself, she holds herself to very high standards of not only honesty and reliability and righteousness. She wouldn't do anybody any wrong. And she's humble about it. I've never heard her brag about anything except, how much she loves her family. And that's remarkable for all that she has accomplished.
I don't think I've worked with anybody who's more principled and thoughtful in the way she goes about making ethical decisions. She tests her own position rigorously before she makes a decision and is very considerate of other people. And she's handled some tough ones. Very sensitive and caring, but hard, tough, smart journalism. That's Michelle.
And now, joining us from her mother's house in Eugene is Michelle Matassa Flores.
Hi, Juan Carlos. Thank you. It's always great to be here in Eugene. I've been having some technical troubles, and so I hope that people can hear and see me okay. And I can only say I wish I could see everybody else. I wish we were all in person for this wonderful event. I have to say, those videos, I pulled them up on my phone because these technical troubles I'm having. And I'm so glad I got to see them. They kind of got to me. This is really a special night. Thanks to everybody who agreed to be interviewed for those. And hello to the rest of you who've joined us here tonight. My sincere thanks to all of you for supporting the SOJC and my passion, the role of journalism in our society. I cannot express enough how humbled I feel to be receiving this honor. Thank you, SOJC, and those who supported my induction this year. Despite my Zoom camera telling me otherwise, I still think of myself as a 30-something kid who's soaking up new knowledge and figuring out how to be the best journalist and leader I can be. Where did the time go? While I might be feeling a bit old all of a sudden, this experience has been so flattering. I truly appreciate the recognition. I want to congratulate my fellow inductee, Ken Doctor. I've followed Ken's work for years and have long admired his smart research into the economic challenges facing our business. Even when his work has left me depressed, it's been essential and illuminating reading. It also helps us see our way forward, which is the opposite of depressing. It's encouraging. Ryan and Jake, the things you've accomplished at this point in your careers are beyond impressive. They're awe-inspiring. You leave me humbled and hopeful for the future. And learning about Dr. Kasama through his induction has underscored for me how fortunate we are in the United States to have a free press and how critical it is to protect and preserve that. I have to say, I've never been big on awards or honors. As a reporter, I wasn't eager to enter contests, and I haven't tracked those I've managed to be part of, much less touted them to anyone. Now, as executive editor of the Seattle Times, I do recognize the value of awards in honoring the incredibly hard work of our staff and in recruiting new talent. But even then, I feel compelled to remind our team that we don't do this work for trophies or plaques. We do it to inform people, to help them live their lives, to make the world better by forcing it to confront its failures and by highlighting its promise. In that sense, this whole process has been a bit uncomfortable for me. The spotlight is not my natural habitat. At the same time, I'm all about finding and following good role models. And the older I get, as I reflect on the generous, inspiring mentors I've had in my life, I'm eager to help nurture new generations of journalists. So for me, that's what tonight represents. I'm part of a generation that was drawn to journalism by the work of Bob Woodward and Carl Bernstein, role models for many. I still remember watching the Watergate hearings with my family as a kid growing up in Roseburg, sometimes out on our back deck on a small TV tethered to a long extension cord. And though the importance of investigative journalism wasn't at the front of my mind at that point, I was only 10 or so, it began sinking in during my teens. I followed my big brother Mark into high school newspaper class, then to the U of O journalism school and the Oregon Daily Emerald. I began working at the Emerald my freshman year, even before I became immersed in J-School courses. Those two places, Allen Hall and the third floor of the EMU, became my new homes and provided hands-on practice, professional skills, and contextual understanding, a foundation I stand on today and feel lucky to have been given. And what a great mix of role models I had. There was the work hard, play hard team at the Emerald, led by a strong, smart, and chill editor named Debbie Howlett, one of the first in a long string of women I've tried to emulate. And then the calm confidence and experience of faculty members like Lauren Kessler, Ken Metzler, and Duncan McDonald. I still remember Duncan delivering tough feedback or advice with a hint of a smile and an expression in his eyes that was just shy of a wink, a lesson in nuance. It's a long time ago, and I don't recall many details about my classes, except that I felt pretty natural at interviewing and reporting, found libel law scary as hell, hated designing a mock magazine, and struggled behind a camera. Oh, and I think I questioned and criticized pretty much everything and everyone. Yep, I was made to be a reporter. One day at the Emerald, I think it was 1983 or 84, our staff was visited by Mike Fancher, a former Emerald editor and then the executive editor of the Seattle Times. Wow, I thought. He went from here all the way to there? He runs that place? Maybe someday I can work for him. When I graduated in 85, after a year as editor of the Emerald, I got an amazing first job at the Salem Statesman Journal, where I had opportunities I couldn't have imagined, including a reporting trip to Japan and a chance to cover state politics at age 22. And a few years later, I got that job working for Fancher. Mike, along with David Boardman, the other former Times editor you just saw, and my boss and publisher, Frank Bleffin, to this day are advisors and role models I turn to all the time. In addition to them, I've been lucky to have many strong women mentors among my editors and fellow reporters, and including the women who led a Seattle Times newsroom protest 4+ decades ago for the right to wear pants in the office. I've learned so much from the many role models I've had through my career and my life. My 90-year-old mom and my husband are in the next room on their own screen right now, and my brother and sister are watching from across town. It hasn't just been about the skills I needed to get by or to get ahead, but a much higher order: how to carry on our work and life ethically, with integrity, respect for others, and empathy for the public we serve. Those are lessons I wish to pass along. As I accept the honor of this career recognition tonight, I also accept the responsibility of taking what I've learned and paying it forward. Thank you so much.
Congratulations, Michelle. And thank you to Tim, who pre-recorded his remarks. Now it is my pleasure to introduce our Senior Associate Dean for Academic Affairs, Leslie Steves, to introduce our next Hall of Achievement inductee, Francis Casoma.
Thanks very much, Juan Carlos. It is such an honor to say a few words about Dr. Francis Casoma and to introduce Dr. Twangi Casoma, who, along with her brother, Colonel Mutale Casoma, will accept the Hall of Achievement induction on behalf of their late father. Dr. Francis Casoma was a luminary in African journalism studies. His leadership and activism for press freedom and an African concept of media ethics remain influential in Zambia and across Africa. The SOJC is so lucky and proud to count him as an alum. He earned his master's in 1979, and his time here was very meaningful, formative, and inspirational, not just for him, but for later graduate students too, including for his daughter, Twangi. It's impossible to overstate Dr. Kasoma's impact on media scholarship. The International Communication Association began having regional conferences in Africa in 2016. There have been 3 so far, and the main theme is de-Westernizing or decolonizing media scholarship and practice. Dr. Casoma is consistently held up as an enduring role model. Regarding the Oregon connection, I had the privilege of meeting Francis Casoma when I was teaching in Kenya in 1991. I attended a conference on rural journalism, and Dr. Casoma was the keynote speaker. He was excited that I was affiliated with SOJC, had many questions about how the graduate program had evolved. He fondly reminisced about his time here, and he was excited that we were beginning to develop a PhD program. So fast forward to 2003, Francis Casoma's daughter, Twangi, successfully applied to our doctoral program, citing her father's memories. In 2005, Twangi came to Ghana on my summer study abroad trip. While she was in Ghana, she met a potential PhD applicant named Janet Kwame, now Dr. Janet Kwame, who chose our program because of Twangi's testimonial. Since then, I'm proud that Africans and others from the Global South with exceptional potential and with other attractive options routinely choose our program. We've had successful PhD students so far from 9 different African countries, as well as from many other underrepresented countries. Colleagues at other universities frequently ask how we get such great Global South students. Francis and Twangi Casoma definitely deserve much of the credit. I know that Francis Casoma would be so proud to know that his daughter Twangi graduated with a PhD from the SOJC, that her own research on journalism ethics in Africa has built significantly on her father's scholarship, and that she is now a tenured associate professor at Radford University in Virginia. Of course, he would also be proud to receive this honor. Personally, and I know I speak for many colleagues when I say it is also gratifying with this choice to see that the HOA is becoming more diverse. So far, there have been just a handful of inductees from underrepresented groups, and there hadn't been any international inductee until this year. Dr. Francis Casoma, a stellar example of underrepresented international students, is such a wonderful and deserving choice for this honor. Thank you.
My dad was a prolific teacher and educator. He brought to the classroom unmatched type of energy and passion. He's a man that loved his culture, adored his culture, and incorporated every aspect of his culture in his teaching.
Professor Kasoma was part of that group of African communication scholars who recognize that because professional media values are deeply inspired by Western or Western-derived norms, you could see that he was grappling with how can we make the media more responsive, less alien, more real to ordinary people.
He was such a visionary for his time. He could see that the practice and the scholarship of journalism and communication are dominated by Western values and approaches. And he wanted to change that. And he wanted to inspire new ways of thinking and doing things that would be led by Africans and grounded in African values.
He always wanted to embrace the whole of African cultures and national peculiarities, etc. So he wanted to cover all Africa. And he also placed human values and ethics above all.
He was a man of integrity. I think he strongly believed in the journalistic values of objectivity, accuracy, fairness, and tried to apply these in his life and work. He strongly believed in practicing what he preached.
I think he was exceptional because he was very committed to media freedom. He was committed to journalism practice and in developing journalism scholarship.
He trained this generation of journalists in Zambia, and not just in Zambia, but people who in some cases were Zambians but then left and moved to South Africa, or people who came to Zambia for education, particularly when South Africa continued to be a white-dominated government. Zambia was a haven for education, and Francis was the beacon of light in building that program and making opportunities available for students along the way.
He set the tone in as far as which direction this country should take in further improving media practice and media training.
The man's work just spoke for itself, and so that made him particularly exceptional and remarkable, both as a teacher, a human being, a father, and a scholar.
The journalism was deep. I think he would like to be remembered as both a journalist and a scholar, committed to Africa, never forgetting his roots, his rural roots, yes.
So next, it is my pleasure to introduce 2007 SOJC alum and Radford University Associate Professor, Dr. Twangi Kasoma. She will accept the HOA award jointly with her brother, Zambian Air Force Colonel Mutale Kasoma. Hi, Twangi, it's great to see you, and congratulations to you and your family.
Hi, Leslie, always great to see you too. Watching that video actually made me tear up. I miss my father so much. Thank you for the touching remarks that you made about my father and me. Yeah, I'm tearing up. All right, I would like to start by recognizing Dean Juan Carlos, Professor Steves, for nominating my father for the HOA award, my father's notable colleagues, Professors Greg Pitts, Kale Nordenstreng, Kian Tomaselli, Helge Roning, Case Hamlink, Audrey Gajepo, and Ambassador Ngosa Simbiakula, and former students, Professor Faxon Banda and Eustace Kandu, who all wrote compelling letters in support of the nomination. Professor Tim Gleason, the chair of the HOA Selection Committee, and all its members, SOJC faculty, students, and fellow alumni, as well as distinguished guests who include my husband, John Armstrong, in attendance at this August gathering. Due to time differences, my mother, Anastasia Kasoma, my brother, Kenel Mutale Kasoma, and my other brother, Ziwa Kasoma, my sisters, Lesa Kasoma, Lute Mwango, Chola Mbilima, Chipo Kasoma, and Chapwa Kasoma, nieces, nephews, in-laws, and the extended family who watch the recorded event. As per African tradition, my eldest brother and head of the Kasoma family, Kenel Kasoma, will give his pre-recorded remarks later. Coincidentally, my brother is also a product of the communications field. He commenced his academic journey at Tampere University in Finland, where our father earned his doctorate under the supervision of Professor Nordenstreng and a licentiate in social sciences. Both of us had the privilege of having Daddy as a professor. His journalism ethics class to date remains my favorite. My father wore many hats. He was a prolific professor, scholar, researcher, philosopher, author, journalist, and press freedom firebrand. His untimely death almost 20 years ago shattered me. With time, I've been strengthened. I vividly remember the last conversation I had with him. I was nearing completion of my master's degree and he had paid me a visit, thanks to Professor Pitts and family, my family here, for hosting him. That visit, which I will forever cherish, was just weeks prior to his death. During our final dinner, he shared a father's pride at seeing his daughter get ready to earn her first graduate degree. Then the journalist in him pointedly asked me, "What next? Have you thought about doing your PhD?" The remarks of Professor Steves, my doctoral supervisor and friend, answer both questions. I should hasten to mention, though, that seeing how my father was such a proud alumnus of the U of O's Master of Arts program in journalism, having been the first international student to win the Nell Taylor Award for Best Graduate Thesis, and that thesis formed the first part of his renowned seminal book, The Press in Zambia, published in 1986 and adopted as a textbook in many African universities and also cataloged in the Library of Congress, deciding to apply to his alma mater, which I also proudly call mine for my doctorate, was a no-brainer. It brought everything full circle, with one Kasoma attaining his master's and another her doctorate. My father had an illustrious career in academia whose heights included the establishment of the mass communication department at the University of Zambia and serving as president of the African Council of Communication Education. Beyond the press in Zambia, he also authored and edited other books, including Journalism Ethics in Africa and Community Radio, its management and organization in Zambia. He also founded the Press Association of Zambia. As DEI continues to be a buzz phrase in academia and beyond, my father's legacy, which makes him so deserving of the HOA award, speaks for itself. A few anecdotes from some of his colleagues solidify this. Professor Kian Tomaselli, distinguished professor, University of Johannesburg, said, Professor Francis Kasoma was amongst the first generation of media scholars to emerge from Africa. These pioneering scholars, few and far between, were separated across an entire continent. They mapped out both course curricula and research orientations, all the while indigenizing theories developed elsewhere to explain modernity into local African conditions that spanned pre-modernity, modernity, and post-modernity. These scholars wrote the textbooks, they set the research questions, and they developed their departments from scratch. They were not journeymen mechanistically applying received methods and theories. Professor Audrey Gajepo, University of Ghana, said, His impact was felt on a continental level, and his theory on Afri-ethics, which he captures in his book, represents an important alternate to Western framework on ethics in journalism, which continues to ignite debate. Professor Greg Pitts, Director, School of Journalism and Strategic Media, Middle Tennessee State University, said, "I'm not sure many American faculty can thread that needle, but Francis was successful in building an academic program at the University of Zambia and contributing to journalism education and practice, not only in Zambia, but in Uganda, Swaziland, South Africa, and Ghana. His books and writings have contributed to global impact." On behalf of the Kasoma family, I sincerely thank SOJC for naming my father, Professor Francis Peter Kasoma, a recipient of the 2021 HOA Award. At this point, I'll turn the virtual mic over to my brother for his pre-recorded remarks from Zambia. Thank you.
I wish to first and foremost take this opportunity to express profound gratitude on behalf of the Kasoma family, and indeed on my own behalf, to the Dean as well as faculty of the University of Oregon for nominating my father, Professor Francis Peter Kasoma, for the prestigious Hall of Achievement Award. Allow me to ride on the protocol already established by my dearest sister, Twangi. It is a great honor and privilege to give an introduction to the Hall of Achievement Award tribute video for my father. Not only was he my father, he was also my mentor, and finding the right words to capture his grandeur was a challenge. To say that introducing a man of his stature is a daunting task is an understatement. However, I will endeavor to do so at the expense of anxiety. Professor Francis Peter Kasoma was a self-made man who came from humble beginnings to achieve great things in the media industry. He started off as a seminarian, trying to be a Catholic priest, and when that didn't work out, thankfully, because I would not be speaking to you today, he went on to become a journalist for a publication at a company called Lever Brothers. He worked for that company both in Zambia and Tanzania. Thereafter, he was picked by one of Zambia's leading public newspaper, The Times of Zambia, where he rose to become a chief reporter. While at the Times of Zambia, he started pursuing his Bachelor of Arts degree at the University of Zambia through long-distance learning. Due to his performance, he was retained by the University of Zambia as one of its staff members and sent to the USA to do his master's degree at the University of Oregon. Upon his return to Zambia, he established the Department of Mass Communication at the University of Zambia. He was, however, not content and felt that there was always room for improvement in academia. So apart from authoring a number of books, which are still used as reference material at universities in Zambia, the Southern Africa region, and Africa as a whole, he decided to enroll for his PhD at the University of Tampere in Finland. As the founder and head of the Mass Communication Department, he also started a newspaper, the Lusaka Star, and a radio station, Unza Radio, for the students to practice what they were learning. Professor Francis Peter Kasoma was eventually honored posthumously in 2006 with the Order of Distinguished Service Second Division Award by then President of Zambia, Mr. Levi Patrick Mwanawasa. Apart from the accolades he has received in academic circles, Professor Kasoma was also a happily married family man and loving father of 8 children, 2 boys and 6 girls. Amongst the girls is a pair of identical twins, which I'm sure you will agree with me is quite an achievement on its own. Distinguished scholars, ladies and gentlemen, that is my attempt at a synopsis of the great man I am proud to call my father. It is indeed pleasing to see that though the man is gone, his memory lives on. Once again, I thank you for the opportunity to give this introduction to the Hall of Achievement Award tribute video for the 2021 recipient, Professor Francis Peter Kasoma.
Thank you, Twangi and Mutale. It is moving how much pride and love you feel and express about your father, and impressive the academic history and all his contributions to the field of ethics in journalism. And thank you, Leslie, for the introductions. And now a warm welcome to Andrew Devigal, Director of the SOJC's Agora Journalism Center at SOJC Portland, and our endowed chair in journalism, innovation, and civic engagement, to introduce our final Hall of Achievement inductee of the evening, Ken Doctor.
Thank you, Dean Moreira, and to everyone for your continued attention celebrating our 2021 Hall of Achievement inductees. Boy, it's been really impressive. Just the words and all of the presentations has been inspiring. So thank you. I'm truly honored to share a few remarks about inductee Ken Doctor. I had the pleasure to work with Ken at Knight Ridder New Media in the late 90s, when all things digital were still considered new media. Even in those early days when we measured content by pixels rather than picas, one of Ken's mantras continue to echo with me today. He once asked us, do you want to simply surf the web, or would you rather make the waves? First of all, to our students watching, it's worth noting that the term surfing the internet was common back in those days when we referenced our amazement and enjoyment in the ability to access nearly every information you needed within a click of a mouse. So since then, that click of a mouse has evolved into a tap and swipe of a screen, and new media has become table stakes to existing and emerging news publications. Throughout this time, Ken Doctor has not only been an astute analyst of our industry's transformation change, but he has also been instrumental in shaping newsroom leaders' approach to the digital evolution, despite the occasional depressing analysis, as Michelle pointed out. But in true form, Ken makes waves. So it was no surprise to me for me to hear Ken plunge headfirst to found a network of local news and information sites as the CEO of Lookout Local. I'm particularly excited to see his focus on local and community-centric journalism that sparks greater civic knowledge and participation that rebuilds local democracy. Not only because that is the heart of what we do at the Agora Journalism Center, but community-centered journalism is key to the success of news organizations' ability to collaborate with and serve the community's information needs. So as you'll see and hear from the video you're about to watch, Ken isn't one to rest on his laurels. His commitment to the craft and sustainability of local news is an inspiration to so many, including those who have walked the halls of the SOJC. So Ken, allow me to offer you my sincere congratulations in your induction to the Hall of Achievement. Thank you for your leadership back in our days together at Knight Ridder, for your sharp, information-rich critique on our industry, and for inspiring us once again by creating a model for local news that starts with community. And now welcome everyone to enjoy this video where you'll learn much more about Ken Doctor's impressive career that continues to make waves in our industry.
If you're looking for a traditional journalist who would say, well, we've always done it that way, that's not Ken Doctor. He wants to throw a grenade or two in the room and just sort of see what happens. You know, I like standing around watching him. He had beliefs, he stood up for them, he argued gently and humorously for them, and almost always got his way.
Local journalism is just a memory in so many communities. It's been on life support for so many years, and I mean, he's always been committed to making journalism better and stronger, which makes our communities stronger and better as well.
unlike some you've taken their buyouts and are just licking their wounds and hoping things get better, Ken has had the gumption to actually do something about it.
I think, when most people who have achieved the kind of stature that Ken has would be content to resting on their laurels, but he's still totally committed.
He combines a strong commitment to real news, both hard news and feature stories, that has carried throughout his career.
Ken manages to be an independent observer, a fiery, smart analyst. He's able to really see things and make sense of things, pull things together. And at the same time as he does that with like a real independence and sort of an original eye, he does it as someone who loves journalism, who cares deeply the whole way through about the health of the newspaper industry and its brands and institutions.
He's been talking about changing newsrooms for a long time, and now he's doing it. If you look at his career, at every stop along the way, his goal has been to improve journalism, to provide more information to the public, whether it was from his days at Knight Ridder, to his many years as an analyst, or to his current position.
He's in touch with the realities of the industry that he's in, the business that he's building, the challenges of building that business. But Ken consistently perseveres through all of that with an optimistic spirit. And that optimistic spirit is manifested not just in being positive and hopeful, but also being a very proactive, ideas-driven person all the time. Ken is somebody who's optimistic about his future, Lookout's future, media's future, local journalism's future, and then acts upon that.
Ken couldn't join us live this evening, but we're thrilled that he recorded his remarks to express his appreciation.
Thank you so much for this honor. One thing I learned in the J School was branding. So here I am, virtual, displaying my duck colors and against the backdrop of my latest journalism foray. It's been a long, long arc that stretches from Allen Hall in 1972 to Lookout in 2021. It starts with the tough, might I say, grizzled professionals who taught someone who had never written even a single piece of journalism all the basics that have propelled me on a half-century odyssey beyond imagination. It is the Rays, the Halversons, the Winners, the Metzlers, the Duncans who taught me actual skills. Those skills, mated with my zeal for storytelling and community betterment, have now activated my 7th career in a category of journalism, local news, that should be listed on the Endangered Species Registry. I have moved lily pad-like from one state to another, from one format to another. Oregon, Colorado, Minnesota, and back to my native California. Alt Weekly Entrepreneur, to City Mags, to Daily Newspaper Features work, to Knight Ridder Newsroom Management, to Digital News Pioneer, to Business of News Analyst, and finally back to Digital Startup Local News Entrepreneur. That's 7 careers within our trade. I'm unsure on my 8th act. Today, I want to offer profound thanks for the launching pad that Allen Hall accidentally became. I want to touch on the lightning path of that career arc that has led me at the age of 71 to my current digital startup down the road from Eugene in Santa Cruz. And I want to talk about the torn vital link between local news and democracy itself. First, a thank you to my favorite Oregonian. I pursued my favorite Oregonian in 1969. I'd met Kathy Francis at UC Santa Cruz in my 2nd year. I journeyed up to Oregon in pursuit of her, one that was rewarded with marriage 2 years later. It was Kathy who brought me to Oregon in 1972. It is Kathy who is my closest buddy, and it is Kathy who has unswervingly supported me from one career to another. We just celebrated our 50th anniversary. But getting to Oregon was one thing and getting into Allen Hall was another. Though admission to the campus then was much looser than it is today, and somehow I'd convinced myself I wanted to be a professional photographer. After a talk or two, I thought I'd been accepted to the campus's then MFA program in photography, only to arrive on campus in the fall of '72 with about $80 to our names and be told that I needed to re-show my portfolio for admission. It stunk, the professor then politely told me. I exited his office, my mind awhirl. What would I do? If I couldn't go to grad school, would I have to take another awful job like cleaning the Valley River pennies on midnight shift, gumballs pressed into the escalator slats, and fragrant hairballs blocking the grates in the women's salon? What would I tell Kathy? For that brief period, I think it was 2 years, the MFA program was housed in Allen Hall. I walked down the hallway, and by the grace of incredible luck, what appeared but a small etched sign jutting out from a wall next to a door, School of Journalism. I stumbled in, picked up some materials, and somehow got admitted and started school. These were skill classes, and they were not for the faint of heart. The memory of Dean Ray standing atop a desk in the news editing class, barking out orders, as he had, we imagine, at the Register Guard. That still stays with me today. Speed, clarity, above all accuracy. These were not requests, but non-negotiable demands, as they needed to be. Ken Metzler sending newbies like me into frightful interviews. I drew Mayor Les Anderson, and I was terrified, but I did the interview. And Bill Winter teaching the basics of effective advertising that I am still applying literally 50 years later. I finished all but 3 credits within those 2 years. And then I had huge fun working at the Daily Emerald. I created the Beef Box column answering some real world questions, like why student health insurance AD&D policies paid out more for the loss of a thumb than a couple of fingers. Now that's service journalism. Ken Kesey interrupted the obtaining of my master's degree. At the 1974 Bend in the River Conference, a bunch of free thinkers, restive souls, searchers, and baby boomers of all sorts got together at Kesey's call. Very long story short, out of it came the Willamette Valley Observer. A few of you may remember the Observer, which we closed after a 7.5-year run in the timber recession of '82. We were young, we were spirited, and we did our best to tell the stories of our time. And that is what journalism is all about. It was my foundation. Let me take you back to 1982 or thereabouts. The Register Guard's building on High Street housed a newsroom of dozens, columnists, reporters, editors who knew the region. Across the United States, almost 60,000 journalists worked in daily newsrooms. Flash forward to 2021. Instead of 60,000 daily journalists, we think there may be about 18,000 in a country with 50 million more people. Gannett now owns the Register Guard and an astounding 25% of the local newspaper business across the country. Vulture firm Alden Capital, now the second largest company, just bought the one-story Tribune Publishing. And though the subject of one takedown article after another, it merrily and rapaciously scoops the last profit out of the local print press business. Yes, newspapers are being printed every day, but it's not the fact of the printing, of course, but what's stuffed between the remaining ads. Papers are printed distantly, hundreds of miles away, forcing deadlines that create DOA newspapers when they are finally delivered. Is it a newspaper if it really doesn't have much in the way of good, original, timely local news? Or is it a ghost paper? We've all heard the term ad nauseum, news desert. If it's a map of the US we're looking at, it's concerning. If it's about the place we live, Eugene, Santa Cruz, and high hundreds of other communities across North America, you feel the actual parch of ignorance in your throat. Just a month ago, The Atlantic wrote back-to-back pieces on the terrors of vulture capital-driven newspaper ownership. 60 Minutes is planning yet another piece on the same. And every 3 years, 60 Minutes producers call and ask me, as a business analyst, 16 variations of the same question. Is it really bad out there? Is it getting worse? Yes and yes, I reply, over and over again, and offer hours of background. They produce, they publish, they go away, as if we just need more problem journalism. So after those 15 years of working as a news business model analyst, I decided I needed to use all of those 6 careers to focus on a solution. That's what the Lookout Local model is. And though it is just a year old, I can tell you it's working. Further, we're part of a small but maniacally focused group of publishers who share 2 characteristics, too rarely found in our news revival landscape. We believe 3 things. Number 1, we are deeply mission oriented. Number 2, we believe we must and will replace the flagging dailies as the primary news providers in our communities. We're not supplements, but replacements, put out by new, nonpartisan, trustworthy local news institutions. Number 3, we drive ourselves to profitability. We believe that old-fashioned earned revenue, circulation through memberships and subscriptions and advertising through innovative, effective products must support a newly growing, admired local free and independent press. Now, my colleagues at the Colorado Sun, Long Beach Post, Daily Memphian, Block Club Chicago believe the same thing. We just met in Denver, and you will soon hear more about our plans for 2022. Lookout itself could stay as a single company in Santa Cruz, aiming to change the conversation about what's possible and what's necessary, or there could be 25 or 50 Lookouts. Lookout Eugene, it's not impossible. What makes Lookout different, people ask. I've honed and I've edited and I've cut to get to this. Our mission is to make Santa Cruz County a better place to live for all. Does that sound like a traditional mission statement for a news company? Nope. Strip away, though, what journalists best do at a local level, what they have always done, and it's all about community betterment. We report the news and connect the dots with the optimism that a well-informed local citizenry will make intelligent and improving decisions. That almost sounds hopelessly romantic these days, but we are traditionalists in that sense. Our core principles at Lookout stand on the same bedrock as does Alan Hall. Yet we are relentlessly contemporary. We are digital only and mobile first. Our site is visual and magazine-like. Our evolving journalism reports on and pictures the wide diversity of our county. Our ad products are rooted in branded content, local storytelling, and the response of businesses has been overwhelming. We convene forums for problem solving. Lookout is where digital publishing connects to our real daily, local, and lived-in lives. And we are just getting going. It's not the end of an arc, but an important point of light on it, I believe. So today, as we celebrate journalism itself, let's not delude ourselves about the current state of it or about what we must do to revive it. We must confront what is becoming of our country impoverished by the vacuum of factual local reporting and mesmerized by the junk quasi-journalism of Facebook. We must rebend the arc of local journalism itself. I want to ask you, as proud ducks, journalists, media people, citizens and inhabitants of what appears to be an increasingly fragile earth and democracy, to think about what you yourself can do to rebuild trustworthy, robust local news institutions. Thank you very much.
Congratulations, Ken. And I am sure that Santa Cruz County is much better now with Lookout. And I wish you great luck with this media operation. Thank you for all you have done for media innovation, journalism, local journalism, and business, the business of journalism. And thank you, Andrew, for introducing again. I want to thank all of our alumni, supporters, friends who have tuned in to watch this year's virtual gala. Your involvement in our community makes a tangible difference in our students' life and future careers. Now that we are back on campus for the fall term, we are ready to forge ahead toward the next normal. We don't fully know what that will look like yet, but I do know we are stronger and we make the most of it together. Thank you for celebrating with us tonight. Stay safe and healthy, and go Dogs.